Hi, my name's Neil Beck and I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. First of all in hospitals, then for many years as a family doctor in the suburbs, which was a long time ago when we didn't have a medical school in Perth and there weren't many doctors and there weren't many specialists, and family doctors did all sorts of things they don't do now. I helped to bring 800 babies into the world and did many tonsillectomies and appendicectomies and vasectomies and broken bones and things like that. But gradually we got more and more specialists who took over the work that family doctors didn't usually do, and more and more of the time was spent consulting with people. In 53 years, I had 500,000 consultations and home and hospital visits. And I became more and more interested in the people who suffered the most and got the worst treatment. And that was definitely addicts. And then I discovered that addiction is stage 4 mental ill health, and that the real problem was mental ill health. The addictions got a lot of attention, but they weren't the real problem. They were secondary to the real problem, which was mental health disorders. And over the years I discovered that the main mental health disorders, there were about 8 of them. The first was worry anxiety disorders, which included general anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks, obsessive compulsive disorder, and all sorts of phobias. And then there was major depression, and then there was bipolar disorder, which was swinging between high and low, and then there was ADD, ADHD, and post-traumatic stress disorder, and what I called post-traumatic evil focus, which was when people couldn't cope with the present, so they focused on faraway things like Guantanamo Bay and the CIA. And then there was IAD, irritability anger disorder. Then there was very low self-esteem. Some people had come from very poor or broken backgrounds and had very low self-esteem, and that was a major problem. And then there was some schizophrenia and autism. And the people who were bad enough to become addicts nearly had 2 or 3 of those things. If they had ADD, ADHD, they often got anxiety and depression, and insomnia. If they had severe depression, they often got anxiety, and if they had a lot of anxiety, they often got depression. And there were some mistakes that the medical profession or healthcarers in general made, which I didn't understand for a long, long time, so I made them myself. One was to treat people as individuals, but we're not individuals. Every one of us is heavily affected by relationships, and things run in families. If you've got a problem, one of the important things you must do is to look to see if people in your previous generations had problems. And the other common mistake people made, and I made, was to treat the distress and not find the causes. Everything that happens was caused by something. And if you've got a mental distress, a mental illness, it was caused by something. And if you don't find what was caused by it, it's much harder to get better. And if you do get better, you're likely to relapse if the cause is still there. And the most important year of a person's life, everyone's life, is their first year. In the first year of your life, the most important person by far is your mother. And in that first year, you establish two of the most important things in your life, which is your feelings, your emotions, and your relationship habits. What I discovered in the end was that the 5 most important things to have a good life are, first of all, to be mentally healthy. Secondly, to have enough good relationships. Thirdly, to keep your endorphins high. Endorphins are 20 chemicals that we have in our brain that that help to stop pain and distress and make us feel happy, and that manage our immune system. And the 4th important thing was to have a strong immune system. Our immune system is white cells and antibodies and chemicals in every part of our body that fight diseases. They fight infections, allergies, inflammation, and autoimmune diseases and cancers. So your immune system is very important, so your endorphins are very important. And the 5th very important thing is to have no addictions. Addictions are a disaster. And of course, addictions are stage 4 mental illness. If you're mentally healthy and you have good relationships and your endorphins are high and your immune system is strong, you're not going to become an addict. And there's one other thing that's very important, that is to smile as often as you can. Smiling and laughing are very important. And why is that? Well, in our brain we have about 25 chemicals that help us to feel good, to be happy and to be strong. They are the over 20 endorphins. Endorphins, the word endorphin stands for endogenous morphines. Yes, we produce morphine type chemicals called endorphins. And then there's also dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin and noradrenaline. And those 25 chemicals, when they're normal or high, we feel good and we are well. But what we didn't know, but we know now, is that when we smile or laugh, our brain produces more of those chemicals. So it's very important to smile or laugh as often as you can. Whenever anything goes well, smile and say, wow, perfect, or yeah. Happiness goes with healthiness, and unhappiness goes with unhealthiness. Happiness goes with high endorphins, and high endorphins manage your immune system, which stops diseases. And unhappiness goes with low endorphins, and low endorphins goes with weak immune system. Weak immune system means you're more susceptible to diseases. And as an example of how we are not separate, we are related to two streams of life, our mother's stream and our father's stream. I found that quite a lot of problems in my generation arose from a great-grandmother. That great-grandmother had 9 children in the back blocks of South Australia by 3 different husbands, and she died at 42 of cancer. If you die at 42 of cancer, that means your immune system is not strong, which means that your endorphins are low, which happens when you're subject to traumas and stress. So, in the end, your mental health and your relationships are so important. And how did I discover this? In the late 1990s, we had a terrible heroin epidemic in Perth. We'd always had alcoholism, and alcohol kills 3 million people a year in the world, and for everyone it kills, it ruins the life of many and breaks up many families. And we'd always had tobacco, and tobacco kills 7 million people a year in the world, and for everyone it kills, it ruins the health and life of many more. But we hadn't had heroin, and with the coming of aeroplanes, fast travel, we got all sorts of things we hadn't had before. Speed, crystal meth, cocaine, ice, and heroin. And heroin was killing people everywhere, and I saw young people who told me that they were the last person standing of their group, that all their friends had died from heroin overdoses. So I thought I better find out about heroin, and I started to work 10 hours a week in an addiction clinic which was 99% heroin. And I wanted to know what caused addiction. In health, and it looked like a health problem to me, you always want to know the causes, because if you know the causes, it's much easier to help people to get better, and then they're much less likely to relapse if the cause isn't there. And so I wanted to know what caused addiction, and I couldn't find anyone who could tell me what caused addiction. I went to all the addiction clinics in Perth and Sydney and couldn't find a single addiction worker who knew what caused addiction or thought it was important to know what caused addiction, but I thought it was important. And then one day in the addiction clinic where I worked 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and I realized that 5 of them had ADD, ADHD. And there was some confusion back then. People thought that mental health problems were caused by addictions. Well, of course, mental health problems are made worse by addictions, and sometimes addictions cause new mental health problems, but the real sequence of events is that people with mental health disorders who don't get properly diagnosed and properly treated suffer so much that they seek relief wherever they can find it, and on the streets they find it, but everything on the streets is addictive, and heroin is very addictive. But when I realized that, in 1 year I treated 700 heroin addicts, and a third of them had ADD, ADHD. once I realised that a third of them had ADD, ADHD, and I went right back into their history, their parents, their home, their brothers and sisters, their neighbourhood, the school, and it was clear that they had ADD first, had unhappy, difficult childhoods, then difficulty at school with a lot of flack and problems, and if they didn't get their ADD diagnosed, which many didn't, then they ended up getting street drugs, mostly alcohol or heroin or crystal meth or cocaine, those sort of things. And that was partly because most people with ADD, or a lot of people with an ADD had a parent with ADD, and that often meant that the family was poor because with ADD and a poor education, people didn't have good jobs and often weren't paid well, so the family was poor. And they lived in the poor end of town, and there the healthcare wasn't so good, and the three main characteristics of ADD, ADHD are poor focusing and concentration, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. People with ADD, ADHD are very impulsive, and so they're very easy to sell dangerous stuff. The drug dealers just have to say, oh, try this will help you, and even if they knew that their friend had died from that, they'll still probably try it. So then I started to look at all the new addicts and go back into their history, their childhood, their parents, their brothers and sisters, their neighbourhood, their school, and found that 19 out of 20 had mental health disorders. As I mentioned, starting early, they had worry, anxiety disorders, major depression, bipolar disorder, ADD, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, irritability, anger disorder, post-traumatic evil focus disorder, very low self-esteem, schizophrenia or autism. And there was a very big problem. Mental health disorders seemed to get more and more common, and addictions were definitely getting more and more common. And what I saw was that there were never going to be enough mental health care workers to help all the people who needed mental health care. And that meant that people didn't get treated till they got bad. They often got no help until they crashed, until their problems were so bad that they couldn't carry on. And by that time, their problems were so complicated, because problems cause problems, and so ingrained that it took a lot of work to help them, and none of them got enough help, and they just made the waiting list longer and longer. So, what were we going to do about that? Well, what I realized eventually was that there weren't enough mental health care workers, because the tools they used, there were only two, and they had big weaknesses. You know, today, most things we do with tools, where would we be without our tools? once upon a time when I was a boy, in the kitchen there were only two tools: a big tin dish that you wash your dishes and cups and forks and knives and spoons in, and a wood stove you had to light in the morning and keep putting wood on to boil the billy and do the cooking. But now in the kitchen we've got electricity and gas and running water and electric and gas stoves and ovens you can just switch on and switch off, and refrigerators and washing machines and mixers and grinders and electric carving knives, all sorts of tools, and everywhere there's tools. I can remember when the most sophisticated tool we had in our office was a little green typewriter. Well, where would we be now without our computers and all the things that we have in the offices? So the problem was with mental health there were only two tools. There was medicines and there was talk therapy or psychotherapy, and those two treatments had very big weaknesses. Medicines had the weakness that the people who could benefit from medicines wanted the medicines to work quickly, to fix them, to be able to stop them, but the people who make medicines wanted them to stay on as much medicine as possible for as long as possible, if possible never get well enough to be able to stop medicines. So they made a lot of medicines addictive. As mentioned, the commonest mental health problems were worry, anxiety disorders, and all the treatments for worry, anxiety disorders, and also for sleep were addictive. Originally it was the barbiturates. There were many different barbiturates and they were all addictive. And then in the 1960s we got these new wonderful things: Valium, Seropax, Mogadon, Xanax, all addictive. And I can still remember the first pharmaceutical company dinner that I went to, where they told us about Stilnox, what wonderful stuff Stilnox was. Well, Ambien or Stilnox are both very addictive. And the three main medicines for ADD are addictive. That's dexamphetamine, Ritalin and Adderall, all addictive. So they can only be prescribed in the first instance by specialists, by pediatricians or psychiatrists, because the family doctors mostly don't get to prescribe them. They can sometimes get to prescribe them once a patient has been on them from a psychiatrist or a pediatrician for some time, but mostly the family doctors don't treat ADD, ADHD, so they don't understand it and they don't diagnose it, and that's a major problem. Every family doctor should be fully aware of ADD, ADHD and be able to diagnose it and to treat it. So the weakness of medicine were two. Firstly, so many were addictive, and so many people got hooked on the medicine that had been prescribed for them for anxiety or insomnia or ADD. And secondly, they're too slow. When you swallow a tablet or a capsule, it takes half an hour to an hour to go right down your gut and start to be absorbed and start to help you. So by the time you go to your cabinet or wherever and get your tablet and get a drink to wash it down, it's at least half an hour maybe 3/4 of an hour, maybe an hour or more before it starts to work, and that's 1 to 2 hours before it's working strongly. And that's just too slow for mental health distresses and for addiction cravings. So medicine's addictive and too slow. Talk therapy, counselling, psychotherapy, CBT, whatever you like to call it. 2 problems: too slow and too costly. It's slow. When you see a new patient with mental health disorders, you need an hour to spend with them to talk about it, how it started, what probably caused it, what's making it worse, what helps, how to deal with it, to help them to understand it. An hour. And then you need to see them for half an hour to an hour every week for weeks or weeks, months and months. Too slow. And secondly, too expensive. To be a therapist, you at least have to have a 4-year Bachelor of Psychology degree. So you have to go right through to the end of your high school and then 4 years at university. And a lot of psychologists have 7-year PhD degrees, and every psychiatrist has to have a 6-year general medical degree, then a couple of years general medicine, then 3, 4 or 5 years postgraduate psychiatric training to become a psychiatrist. So 10 or 12 years. So those people need to be paid well. They're very intelligent, they've had a long expensive education, and they need to be paid well. And if we don't pay them well, we'll have even less of them. But down and out troubled people with mental health problems usually can't afford private psychologists or psychiatrists, or if they've got health insurance, the number of sessions with a psychologist or a psychiatrist per year is just not enough. So then they're dependent on free government clinics, but they've got very long waiting lists because there's so many people dependent on them, and even the government can't afford to employ as many psychologists and psychiatrists as are needed, even if there were enough to be employed. And yes, there's a terrible problem at the moment in New South Wales, where half the psychiatrists are walking off the job or threatening to do so because their work is, they're so busy and it's so frustrating and they're not getting paid well enough. So what's the solution to that? Well, I think there are 3 solutions, and it's taken me all these years to work this out and to work on those solutions. The first solution is we need to have better tools. We need to have a full pack of mental health and addiction tools that are effective and that really work. And the second thing is self-help. People have to help themselves as much as they can. So those tools have to be usable by people so they can help themselves. If people can do half the work that needs to be done, then there's enough psychologists and psychiatrists to do the rest of the work properly and fairly quickly. And the sooner you start with the mental health problem, the easier it is, and the longer it is before people get mental health care, the harder it is. So the third thing is the tools must start to work early, when things are fairly simple, the causes are obvious, they haven't had problems causing more problems and getting deeper and deeper ingrained. So, a complete pack of tools, self-help, and starting on problems as soon as possible after they start. So, over a 27-year period, I developed 7 tools. Got a couple more coming, but 7. The first one was videos. There's no faster, easier, better way to understand your problems than to see the right videos on them. And I made the first video, I think, about 12 or 14 years ago when I was struggling, because I was spending all day explaining stuff again and again and again to people, and they could learn that stuff better, in some ways better anyway, by watching videos. My first video was about 10 minutes and it got 10,000 viewings in 9 months, and so I thought I knew what I was doing, and I made another 8, and I had 9 videos, and they got reasonable amount of viewing, and it saved me quite a lot of work. But gradually less and less people watched the videos, so I thought, oh, I got to do them better. So I did them better in more detail and on each separate one, and so I ended up with 31 7 to 12 minute videos, which I spent a great deal of time getting right, but they didn't get watched either. And then I discovered that what had happened was that everybody was watching 1 minute videos on TikTok. So then I started to make 1 minute videos, and each 1 minute video can only cover one thing, so you need a lot of them, because there are a lot of things in mental health and addiction. So I ended up with about 100 minute videos, which you can find listed at my website, which is called smilefixit.com. smilefixit.com. I had a long website called mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com. mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com, still there, and the original 31 as well. And a few people watch those long videos, but most people want the 1 minute videos. And so the first tool was videos, which ended up being about 100 under a minute videos. The second thing was websites, mentalhealthvideos.a-to-z.com and smilefixit.com. The third thing was an app. We saved time when we got very busy, with a 20-question checklist. That helped a lot, but it was still slow, and one of my assistants had to do that before I saw the patient, so that was extra manpower. And then there were more and more apps, and there were apps about everything, and we realized we had to have mental health and addiction app. But apps are a lot of work and they cost a lot of money to make. But 18 months ago, fortunately, I found someone who helped me do that, and we made the Mental Fix-It app. The Mental Fix-It app. And the Mental Fix-It app has had 38 questions in that covered every aspect of mental health and addiction. And 38 questions sound like a lot of questions. It's going to take a long time to do, but no. Each question had 3 possible answers, and you just tapped which of those 3 answers was right for you, or the nearest right for you. And so you could tap your way through 38 questions in 10 minutes. And I thought that was okay. That's better than an hour. But it was too long. People wanted it to be shorter. So now it's 19 questions and 5 minutes, and even that's too long. And when my tech help comes back from New York, is in New York at the moment doing a training course, we're going to make the Mental Fix It App 2 minutes app. And what does an app do for you? Well, it covers everything, and it gives you an instant report. And you tap the last question on the app, you get an instant report on the screen. So get your phone, if it's an iPhone, you tap the App Store icon and download the Mental Fix It app, which is free, in a few seconds. If you've got an Android phone, find the Google Play icon, tap that and download the Mental Fix It app, which is free, in a few seconds. And then in 5 minutes tap your answers to the questions and get an instant report, comes up on your phone screen, that tells you 4 things that are very helpful. Probably the most helpful thing is it tells you which 6 videos to watch, which you can watch immediately. So a few seconds to download the app, 5 minutes to tap your answers to the questions, and 6 minutes to look at 6 1-minute videos. In 10 minutes you're miles and miles in front. What are the other things that the instant report tells you? It tells you which medicines are likely to help you, and you have to get the medicines prescribed by a doctor, but it's good to know what medicines are likely to help you, because you can consult Dr. Google and find out about those medicines before you see your doctor or after you see your doctor. Thirdly, it tells you everything you've tapped as being a problem. The severe things, the moderate things, the mild things, in descending order. You get a complete list of everything that's a problem for you and a score for each. And the 4th thing the instant report shows you is a graph of your total scores, because each time you do the app check, and we recommend you do it often, every day to begin with, you get clearer and clearer and clearer. And the clearer you get, the more likely you are to get what you need and get rid of what you don't want. Each time you do the check, the app adds up all the scores of all the things you pressed as a problem and gives you a total score for that day. And then it puts each day's total score in a graph. And why is that important? That's important because as soon as you look at your report, you immediately know if your treatment is working or not. If your treatment is working, your total score graph is getting better. If your treatment is not working, your total score graph is not getting better, and you need to have more treatment or different treatment. And it's very valuable to get fast feedback on whether the treatment is working. You know, of course, whether you feel better or you feel worse, but that's a bit vague, and this is a more precise, accurate assessment of whether you're getting better and whether you should continue that treatment or change to some other treatment. And the second, the other thing that total score graph is very valuable for is it helps you to know whether things you did or that happened to you in the last day or two were helpful or harmful. If what you did or what happened to you caused the score to get better, well, that's good, keep doing that. If what happened to you, or you did cause your score to get worse, well, avoid that. So, the third tool is an app, the Mental Fix-It app. It's videos, 101-minute videos, 2 websites including Smile Fix-It, which on one page, you can look at one page and you can see everything, and you can just tap on what you want to know more about. And the third thing is the Mental Fix-It app, which helps you know which videos to watch, which medicines are likely to help you, what all your problems are, and whether the treatment is working. And the fourth thing is live streaming, which is of course what we're doing now, because a lot of people like to look at live streaming, and in some ways it's better than the 1-minute videos. It's a little bit distressing for me having to get a video on something down to 1 minute. You have to work on it. You can't have any wasted words, but you don't want to miss anything out. So I sometimes go over the text of a video 20 times before I make it, and then I have to revise it when I see what's wrong with it and make it better. So all the videos, we keep on revising them every few months to make them better and better. But a lot of people like the live streaming, and it's a bit humiliating to find that they watched some off-the-cuff live streaming almost as much as they watched the 1-minute videos we sweated over. So that's 4 tools. The 5th tool is powder medicine. Why powder medicine? Speed. You want medicine that works quickly. Half an hour to an hour is too slow for a medicine to start to work. And what I found is if I ground the medicine up and gave people a little spoon to drop it on their tongue, and they sucked it and didn't swallow it, it got into the blood flow in their tongue within 5 minutes, and started to help them in 5 minutes, and was strong in 10 to 15 minutes, instead of taking 30 to 60 minutes to start and 1 to 2 hours to be strong. And the 6th tool was a pocket powder medicine dispenser, because powder medicine, little spoons, a bit iffy, difficult, but this contains the powder medicine, and you keep it in your pocket like that, and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, even driving the car or in a meeting or during lunch break or during a difficult work, if you feel a mental health problem coming, or you start to crave an addictive substance that you're trying to avoid taking, just whiz the pocket powder medicine dispenser out and drop the powder on the top of your tongue, not under your tongue, on the top of your tongue, and suck it. And it starts to work in 5 minutes, because your tongue is red or pink because the blood vessels are so close to the surface, and when you sprinkle tiny grains, thousands of tiny grains of powder on your tongue, they get into the blood vessels very quickly. And it's even better than that, because if we make the powder medicine taste very nice, your body starts to develop taste conditioning. Your body starts to connect the fact that you have a nice taste, and 5 minutes later you start to get better. And when it connects these things, after a few weeks, as soon as you get the taste, you start to feel better. As soon as you get the taste, your body starts to respond to the medicine even before the medicine's been absorbed. You may have heard of Pavlov's dogs conditioning. Well, this is a much faster version of that. Powder medicine, powder taste conditioning. You start to get relief in seconds. And it's even better than that because it's easy to mix 2, 3 or 4 powder medicines together, and you usually don't have just one distress at a time. You have worry and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder and a craving for heroin. You have 2, 3 or 4 distresses at once, and we can mix 2, 3 or 4 powders together so that you get relief from all of those things at once. It's not quite exact, of course, but it's a lot better than one medicine. And one powder medicine is a hell of a lot better than 3 tablets or capsules, which people have difficulty managing, and of course costs them a lot of money, because each separate tablet is a separate prescription that costs them money. And powder, most medicines start as powder, and making them into tablets or capsules is costly. It increases the cost of medicine quite a lot. But if you had bulk powder in a pocket dispenser, that's actually cheaper than powder medicine, and 2, 3 or 4 powders are much cheaper than 2, 3 or 4 tablets or capsules. And it's even better than that, because it's very important that you get the right dose of medicine for you and your condition. The right dose for you depends on how big you are. Are you 45 kilos or 145 kilos or 95 kilos? Because you need a different dose depending on how big you are, how heavy you weigh, your body mass. And it depends how quickly you absorb the medicine, and some people absorb medicine quicker than others. And it depends on how quickly you burn the medicine. Some people have a faster metabolism and burn medicine faster, and it depends on how fast you excrete the medicine, because your liver excretes the medicine through your gallbladder, and your kidneys excrete medicine through your urine. And it depends on how severe your problem is, and it depends whether you're driving a car or doing some precise work. So with tablets and capsules, you can break them in halves and they make 2 or 3 different strengths, but you don't get exactly what's right for you. But with the powder medicines, we give people, first of all, a very weak strength, and they take 4, 5 or 6 or 7 pops of the medicine and find out what works best for them, what gives them the best results and the least side effects. And when they've worked that out, then we can give them a new dispenser which has got the right dose for them. Because if you don't take enough medicine, it doesn't work very well. You don't get better as you should. And if you take too much medicine, you get side effects. So it's very important to get the right amount of medicine for you and your condition, and what you have to do that day. So that's 6 tools: videos, websites, the Mental Fix It app, live streaming, which I do 4 times a week, usually Wednesday, Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Perth time, which is 9 p.m. Sydney and Melbourne time, and 7 a.m. in New York and 4 a.m. in Los Angeles. So pretty sometimes 20% of our people are American viewers and 10% are UK viewers, and I wonder, did they stay up very late or did they get up very early? So now the Sunday one, which we used to do 7 p.m. on Sunday evening, we now do at about 9 a.m. Sunday morning Perth time, which is a civil hour in the Northern Hemisphere. So the seventh tool is a heartbeat meditation aid. Meditation is such an important habit to have if you've got mental health or addiction issues. It calms you, relaxes you, reconditions your brain through epigenetic changes, and just refreshes you and makes you then stronger and able to deal with things better. But the problem is that the people who would most benefit from meditation are the ones who often can't learn to do it. Because what you do with meditation is you focus on something, and while you're focusing on that thing, you try to forget everything else to give yourself a rest. But if you're very agitated and you've got lots of problems, it's hard to forget the rest. So you focus, but the focus doesn't last very long, and then you're thinking about your problems. So people who teach meditation usually teach you to focus on one of two things. They either give you a word and you focus on that word and you just repeat that word, repeat, and try to rest from your other problems. And every time your mind wanders, you come back to that focus. Or they teach you to focus on your breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Don't think about all those problems. But that's easy if there are big problems and you're pretty agitated. So neither a word nor breathing are very mind-grabbing. And I thought maybe listening to your heart would be more mind-grabbing. So I got a cheap cut it short, and then I put it under my clothes, over the upper left side of the heart, left side of the chest, and I can hear my heart beating strongly and loudly, and it's very interesting. And if you do that for a month or two, you start to develop a good habit of meditation, and then you can continue to meditate and increase the strength and reliability of your meditation by focusing on your breathing. Focusing on your breathing is the best. And if you want a heartbeat meditation aid, they're $25, and we can send you one for $25 plus postage anywhere in the world. Focus on your breathing is very important if you have sleep difficulties, because just before you go to sleep, you may notice that your breathing gets very steady. And that's part of going to sleep, is your breathing gets very steady. So if you have difficulty sleeping, and even if you have to take some medicine to help you to sleep, just focus on your breathing as you're lying there, or focus, try to meditate, or just focus on breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, say sleep. Keep on repeating the word sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, sleep. And soon you'll go to sleep. And you can make that a habit, and that's better than taking medicine. A lot of people have to take medicine, and most sleeping medicines are addictive. The one that I most preferred was actually an antidepressant called mirtazapine, and mirtazapine is a very calming medicine, and it's not addictive. And although it's sold and promoted as an antidepressant, it's the best sleeping medicine. But breathe in, breathe out, say the word sleep. Breathe in, breathe out, say the word sleep is another way of doing it. And I've got an 8th tool coming. As a doctor for 53 years, apart from mental health problems getting worse and worse and addiction getting worse and worse, obesity and diabetes and blocked artery diseases were getting worse and worse. There's an absolute epidemic of obesity in the wealthier countries, particularly the US and North America, Canada, but also in Australia and also in the UK, and it's coming in China and coming in India. In India they have a lot of diabetes, and my Chinese friend tells me that they're getting more and more obesity in China. And what's that due to? Due to two things getting worse, mostly. One is we do less and less physical work and less walking because we've all got cars and public transport, so we need less and less calories. But we're getting more and more calories because food is more plentiful, and the food manufacturers put sugar in everything they possibly can, both foods and drinks. Sugar is a gold mine for the food manufacturers because it's very cheap, people love the taste, and it's addictive. If you don't believe sugar is addictive, do a ChatGPT search on it and you'll find it is addictive. So the food and drink manufacturers put it in everything because it doesn't cost them much to put it in. People love the taste and they get hooked on it, and the sugar is easy to work with and to store and to transport, so it's a gold mine for them. So at the same time as we need less and less calories, we're getting more and more calories because there's sugar in everything. So I thought, how can we solve that? Well, fruit powder is becoming more and more popular. People are putting fruit powder in their cooking of sweets and desserts, and they're putting it in drinks, in thick shakes and drinks. And fruit powder is part of what humans' gut and their chemistry has got used to over hundreds of thousands of years, and it's got fibre in it. Sugar's got no fibre, and our gut bugs need fibre. So I thought, let's put tasty fruit powder in pocket dispensers, but the pocket dispensers have to be bigger than the medicine dispensers because we need about 1 ml of fruit powder to get a nice taste. So now, not available yet. This is the first prototype, but it'll be in March. I think that we'll have lots and lots of these. I'm getting 5,000 made in Ningbo, and they hold about 40 mils of fruit powder. You carry them in your pocket whenever you feel like a lovely taste with no sugar or very little sugar, and healthy and good for your gut bugs. Just whiz it out, tap it on your hand like that, drop it on your tongue, on the top of your tongue, don't swallow it, suck it, and you'll have a lovely taste, and you'll feel better, and that may help you to avoid eating or something or drinking something that's got sugar or too many calories in it. Might even help you stop smoking as well, but I think tool number 8 could be a great success, and if it is, we'll be sending it all over the world. So there we are. We need a complete pack of tools that are really effective for mental health and addiction, more effective than just medicines and talk therapy. The tools must be tools that troubled people can use themselves to do self-help. If they can do a quarter of what needs to be done or half of what needs to be done, and some people can do 3/4 of what needs to be done, and they've only got a few things they have to take to a helper, not a heap of things to take, and that cuts the waiting lists. So powder medicines that work fast, that let you do self-help, and that let you start to deal with problems as soon as they start. As soon as you get a problem, go to your phone, download the Mental Fix It app, find which videos to watch the videos, and in 10 minutes you'll be miles in front. And you'll be able to solve that problem, or start to solve that problem quickly when it's much easier, and you won't have to wait for a long time till the end of a waiting list to get help for the bits that you do need help with. Well, I think that's enough for one day, and so we'll switch off now, and I hope so. Today is Saturday, so I'll be back tomorrow morning, Perth time, 9 a.m.